Okay, so you wake up tomorrow morning and every commercial aircraft on the planet is sitting on the ground. Not delayed, not diverted, grounded. Every airline, every route, every flight, gone. The sky above every city on Earth is completely empty and silent in a way it has not been since the Wright brothers first left the ground in 1903. And for the first few minutes, if you are being honest, part of you feels something close to relief. Think about what disappears with the planes, the $400 baggage fees, the cancellations that strand you in Atlanta for 9 hours with a $5 meal voucher and a gate agent who stopped making eye contact 20 minutes ago. The carbon emissions pumped into the atmosphere by 100,000 flights every single day. The jet noise over residential neighborhoods at 6 a.m. that nobody in those neighborhoods ever voted for. Airlines have been among the most complained about industries in the history of consumer surveys. The global aviation industry lost a combined $168 billion in 2020 when COVID grounded most of its fleet. Nobody held a candlelight vigil. Nobody organized a protest outside an empty airport terminal. For a brief moment on the morning every plane stops, it is genuinely possible to read the silence in the sky as something the world might actually need, maybe even deserve. Here is what is happening on the ground while you are reading that silence wrong. In the flower farms surrounding Nairobi, Kenya, the first sign of what has happened is not a news alert. It is silence from the logistics coordinator who calls every morning to confirm the day's shipment. The flowers are ready. The trucks are loaded. But there is nowhere to send them. This is not a hypothetical. During the 2010 eruption of Iceland's Eyjafjallajökull volcano, which grounded European airspace for just 6 consecutive days, the Kenya Flower Council reported losses of $3.8 million per day. Not per week, per day. Kenya's flower sector employs approximately 2 million people. Those are not people who work in aviation. They are farmers who have never sat in a departure lounge or checked a bag or paid for in-flight Wi-Fi. They are the first people this scenario destroys, not because of anything they did, not because their farms stopped producing, but because the supply chain connecting their field to a florist in Amsterdam runs entirely through a cargo hold at 35,000 feet. On a permanent grounding, 2 million incomes do not take a hit. They end. Before breakfast, on a morning those workers woke up thinking was ordinary. But the flower farms are just where this scenario becomes visible to human eyes. The much larger destruction is happening somewhere you would never think to look first. And it is happening faster. 58% of the world's air cargo does not travel in dedicated cargo aircraft. It travels in the belly of the passenger planes you have been picturing sitting silent on runways. Your suitcase on your last flight shared the hold beneath you with pharmaceutical shipments, fresh produce, precision manufacturing components, and medical devices, moving on schedules measured in hours, not days. The passenger cabin above is how airlines pay for the fuel. The cargo hold below is how the global supply chain moves everything that cannot wait for a container ship that takes 3 weeks to cross an ocean. When you ground every commercial aircraft simultaneously, you eliminate 58% of global air cargo capacity in a single morning. And what is inside those holds cannot wait 3 weeks. On any given day, approximately 1,000 human organ transplants require air transport to reach their recipients in time. A donor heart has a viable window of 4 to 6 hours from the moment of harvest to the moment it enters a recipient's chest. A liver has 12 to 24 hours. A kidney has similar constraints. These organs move on commercial passenger flights because dedicated medical aircraft cannot match the frequency or geographic coverage of the commercial aviation network. The transplant coordinators who track these shipments in real time operate with almost no margin on a normal day. When every commercial aircraft is grounded on the same morning, those coordinators are not managing a disruption. They are managing a death count that begins accumulating within the first 6 hours and does not stop accumulating until the planes are back in the air. But most people stop their imagination here. Stranded passengers, empty airports, transplant organs, the visible human drama at the surface of this scenario. What they miss is the industrial destruction that begins simultaneously in the countries you would least associate with air travel dependency. And this is the counterintuitive center of this entire scenario, the part that nobody sees coming until it is already too late. You would assume the economies most destroyed by grounding every commercial aircraft are the island nations, the tourist economies, the geographically isolated countries whose only realistic connection to global trade moves through the air. Those economies do collapse immediately and completely, but they are not the first to break. The first economies to break are Germany, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the most sophisticated manufacturing nations on Earth, the countries you associate with industrial resilience and economic precision. Modern manufacturing runs on a supply chain philosophy called just-in-time inventory. You do not stockpile components in large warehouses. You order them to arrive precisely when the production schedule requires them, timed to the hour, not the week. When air freight disappears on a Tuesday morning, the German automotive sector does not have 2 weeks of inventory to fall back on. The Japanese electronics manufacturers do not have warehouses full of backup components waiting for disruptions. The Taiwanese semiconductor fabrication plants that produce approximately 90% of the world's most advanced chips do not have their critical chemical inputs stockpiled for more than a few days at a time. They have exactly what was in transit when the planes stopped. And when that runs out, the production lines stop. Not slow down, stop. Consider what happened the last time American airspace was completely cleared. On September 11, 2001, the Federal Aviation Administration grounded all 4,500 commercial aircraft in American airspace. William Clay Ford Jr., the great-grandson of Henry Ford and the chief executive of the Ford Motor Company, was in a board meeting when the news came through. By September 13th, just 48 hours later, he had shut down 5 Ford assembly plants across North America. Not because of grief, not because workers stayed home, because a single sensor component the size of your thumb, manufactured at a facility in Germany and delivered to Ford via air freight every 48 hours, had run out entirely. Ford had no stockpile. Nobody had planned for American skies to go silent. 2 days of grounded aircraft stopped production of 13,000 vehicles. William Clay Ford Jr. watched his company lose an estimated $1 billion in production value in 72 hours. From one component, one supplier, one thumb-sized part that nobody in that board meeting had ever thought about until it was gone. That was one country, 3 days, one industry, one missing component. Now make it every airline, every country, every industry, every component, simultaneously. with no resumption date anywhere on any calendar. The financial markets do not wait for factories to run out of components before they price in what is coming. Within the first hour of a confirmed permanent global grounding, every airline stock on every exchange moves towards zero simultaneously. The combined market capitalization of global commercial aviation is approximately $900 billion. That figure does not evaporate gradually over months. It reprices in the first trading session of the first morning. Boeing and Airbus, whose combined order books represent hundreds of billions in future aircraft deliveries, see those order books become immediately worthless. The aerospace manufacturing sector, which employs 1.1 million people in the United States alone, begins receiving the signal that the revenue underpinning every one of those jobs no longer exists. Insurance markets freeze because no actuarial model in history was built for a scenario where an entire global industry ceases all operations permanently before lunch on a Tuesday. Aviation-dependent tourism represents approximately 10% of global GDP, according to the World Travel and Tourism Council. That percentage does not decline over months. It approaches zero on the same morning the planes stop. Every international hotel chain, every cruise line that depends on passengers flying to embarkation ports, every airline-dependent resort economy, from the Maldives to Phuket to Cancun, prices in the same. Reality. In the same trading session, on the same morning, the businesses built around passengers arriving do not get a transition period. They get a Tuesday. And then there is the pharmaceutical cold chain, a system almost nobody has ever thought about, and that keeps more people alive than most people realize. Temperature-sensitive medications, including insulin, certain cancer treatments, and internationally distributed vaccines, require continuous refrigerated air transport across global supply chains. India produces approximately 20% of the world's generic pharmaceutical supply. The distribution of that supply to markets across Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America runs substantially through air freight. A sustained global grounding does not create pharmaceutical shortages over months. It begins creating them within weeks in the markets most dependent on air-transported medical supply. The patients who feel this first are not in the countries that grounded the planes. They are in the countries that never had planes to begin with. So here is the honest answer to what actually happens the morning every commercial aircraft on Earth sits on the ground. The passengers are the last thing that matters. They are uncomfortable, they are stranded, they are angry, and they will miss important things. And some of those things are genuinely devastating at the personal level. But they will survive the immediate morning. They are standing on a bridge while the structure beneath them begins to fail, and they are fine right up until the moment they are not. What is not fine is the donor heart in the cargo hold at O'Hare that was supposed to reach Dallas 4 hours ago. What is not fine is the assembly plant in Stuttgart that has exactly 12 hours of sensor components remaining before the line stops permanently. What is not fine is the pharmaceutical shipment sitting in a grounded aircraft at Schiphol that was supposed to reach a clinic in Kampala by Thursday. And what is not fine is a flower farm outside Nairobi where 2 million people just lost the only supply chain connecting their work to the world. Not because demand disappeared, because the planes stopped. You woke up this morning and the sky was silent. And for a few minutes, if you are being honest with yourself, part of you thought that might actually be something close to a good thing. The world runs on what moves through that sky, not the passengers, what moves below them. In the hold beneath every seat on every flight that was supposed to leave this morning and did not. The day the planes stop is not the day the world gets quieter. It is the day the world discovers exactly how many things were only working because those planes never stopped. The sky is empty. The factories feel it by Wednesday. The hospitals feel it by Friday. 2 million flower farmers feel it before breakfast. And the rest of us feel it the moment we realize the silence above us was never really silence at all. It was everything holding together.